All right, hello everyone. Okay, so in the last video we talked about an if statement and we saw the structure of how an if statement is structured out. So we said an if statement first of all starts with a keyword if and then an opening and closing parentheses, and in these parentheses is basically where your condition will go. Basically your condition is basically what it's going to evaluate to true or false, and based on the result of your condition, if it's true, then the lines of code that are going to the line of code or the lines of code that are going to go in these curly braces are going to execute. And we talked about the fact that a tool for creating your conditions over here in these parentheses is what's called relational operators, right? So in this video, there are several relational operators, but in this video we're going to look at the less than relational operator and then the greater than relational operator, and then further videos will look at extra ones. Okay. So an example of a relational operator will be the greater than sign. And the way you can use it in an if statement will be something like this. 2 is greater than 1, right? Well, we know, ourselves that 2 is greater than 1, right? So the expression, this whole thing is an expression. The expression that goes in these parentheses is what I mentioned before as your condition, right? And your condition has to basically it has to result to either true or false. This expression over here is what's called a Boolean expression. We talked about Boolean variables, and we said Boolean variables either hold the value true or false. Now we've heard that word again, and this time it's this expression over here. It's called a Boolean expression. Now a Boolean expression is basically an expression that results to true or false. So in this case, this Boolean expression over here, it's either going to result in true or false. In this case, we know it's true, right? Because we know 2 is greater than 1. And so the only way, or the only time that the lines of code in this block, okay, the opening and closing curly braces, the only way the lines of code, that we are going to type in this block is executed is when the Boolean expression over here or our condition results to true. So let's do something if 2 is greater than 1. So in our block of code, I'm going to type in just display a message, system.out.println, display a message and say that, okay, 2 is greater than 1, right? So it first checks the condition, and if the condition or the Boolean expression results to true, that's the only time that anything in this this block of code, anything in these curly braces will execute, right? So in this case, if it's true, we're displaying a message saying 2 is greater than 1. So let's compile this and then run it and see what happens. Now it says 2 is greater than 1 because it first of all checked this condition or this Boolean expression to see if it's true or not, right? Because it was true, this line was executed. Now let's flip it and change it from 2 to 1 and then 1 to 2. Now when we first look at this condition, we know that it's not true. We know that 1 is not greater than 2. So it's going to check that if 1 is greater, it's going to first of all check 1 is greater than 2. Is 1 greater than 2? It's going to say, no, we know this expression over here results to false. And we said that the only time that anything in our block of code, in our block of code, these quotation marks, anything in there, the only way anything in there or any line of code in there is going to execute is if our Boolean expression or our condition results to true. Because this condition or our Boolean expression results to false, this line of code is not going to run. What's going to happen is it's going to be skipped. The program is going to jump out of the block of code. It's going to jump out all the way here and then execute anything below that. All right, so let's compile our program, run it. And we see nothing happens. Nothing happens because it first checked if 1 is greater than 2. It realized that 1 is not greater than 2. So this whole Boolean expression resulted to false. And if it's false, then the line or the lines of code in this block of code here is not going to execute. So it's going to jump out of it and run any code below it. Now, but because there's no code below it, nothing happens. It doesn't do anything. It just skips and nothing happens. So an if statement allows us to do certain things based on a certain condition, right? We can do something if this condition is true, and we can do another thing if this condition is false. So an if statement basically allows us to do something if the condition is true, right? If the condition is not true, then we can skip it and then do all other things below our if structure. All right, so compile it, run it again, we can see nothing is happening. All right, so the same way we've put numbers here, right, we can store these numbers in variables and use them, right? So I can create an integer, and then I'll call this one first number, and then I can initialize it to the number, let's say 4, and then I can create another int, call it second number, and initialize it to, let's say, 6, terminate it. And over here I can replace these values, and I can say if first number is greater than second number, right, then system.out.print. This time let's not print out this string, let's print out a message using the values in these variables. If first number is greater than second number, then we're going to say that first number, right, let's concatenate it with a string and say first number is greater than, and then let's concatenate it with second number, this way. Makes sense, right? It's going to check to see if this is true. If this is true, then it's going to display this message to us using the values in these variables. If not, then nothing's going to happen below, because there's really nothing. It's going to jump out of this block of code and continue with any code below it, right? Compile, run. We know first number has the value 4. We know second number has the number 6. And so it's checking, is 4 greater than 6? We know 4 is not greater than 6. And so this line or anything in this block of code, anything in this block wasn't executed. So it jumped out of the if structure and continued with any code below it. But because there's no code below it, nothing happened. Let's change the values of first number and second number. Let's change it to 6 and let's change it to 4. Over here it's going to check, is first number greater than second number? The Boolean expression, is it going to result to true or false? The only time this code runs is when the Boolean expression results to true. That's it. The only time an if statement executes is when its Boolean expression, when its condition evaluates to true. So first number we know is 6, second number we know is 4. We know 6 is greater than 4, so we know the Boolean expression is going to result to true, which means the line of code, or the multiple lines of code in this block of code, in this block, all right, in these quotation, right, these curly braces, sorry, I said quotation, these curly braces are going to execute. So let's see, first number, yeah, okay, so when I compile this and I run it, now it says 6 is greater than 4. Right, it's using the values in first number and then second number, saying 6 is greater than 4. So it did something when the condition was true, and it did nothing when the condition was false. It skipped this whole structure and moved on to the program when the condition was false. All right, so this is the idea of an if statement. All right, so this is one decision structure, and there are multiple multiple decision structures we're going to cover in the future. Right, you're going to learn more about if statements and other decision structures. So for now, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next video. All right then, bye bye.